Hey, good afternoon. This is Christopher Hopkins, and I look forward to spending the next hour with you talking about artificial intelligence and ChatGPT for mediators. So let's jump right in. Again, my name is Christopher Hopkins. I'm a lawyer and a mediator in West Palm Beach with the law firm of McDonald Hopkins. The majority of my legal practice is civil litigation and appeals. I generally do commercial litigation, some defamation, construction, and some injury cases as well. And a bulk of my time is spent looking into emerging technologies, and ChatGPT is obviously the hottest of the emerging technologies. So we're going to spend some time here talking about how to bring this into your mediation practice, both in terms of marketing your mediation practice, as well as how to actually use these AI systems and what they are. So if you've never used this before, you'll definitely learn a lot today and have some practical hands-on knowledge. If you have used this before, we're going to go through some very specific prompts that you may not have thought of or may not have seen before, and we'll hopefully tune you up and get you better at using it. So no matter where you are on the spectrum, I think you'll get something out of this today. So here's our outline. One, we're going to talk about the overview of artificial intelligence. This includes some definitions and some general concepts. Not going to spend a lot of time at that, but I do want to get everybody kind of using the same vocabulary at the very, very basic level. Then we're going to talk about the different products and platforms. You've definitely heard of ChatGPT, that's why you're here. But there's other programs and platforms called, there's an image one called DALL-E, Microsoft Bing, Google Bard, and some other products, and we'll talk a little bit about that, so you at least have seen them. Then we're going to talk about how AI can be used in the practice of law, and I will give you 10 different prompts, and it's not just the individual prompts, but it's how to use them in your mediation practice. I'll give you some recommended readings and a Q&A, all of that within an hour. So let's get into it. Okay, overview of artificial intelligence. So I was trying to think of what some of the key terms are that you might want to know, again, without being overloaded, and what the definitions are. So it seemed only reasonable to go ahead and ask ChatGPT to give us those answers. So what is artificial intelligence? Ask that to ChatGPT. You'll notice in the question, I put in parentheses, explain it to us at a college student level. And it goes on to indicate AI is a field of computer science focused on creating machines and software that mimic human intelligence. And it goes on, recognizing patterns. And patterns is the key difference between artificial intelligence and any other sort of algorithm or computer function that you've dealt with so far. Next phrase that you've probably heard is large language models, or LLM. Lawyers obviously think of LLM meaning something different, but in this case, it's large language models. These are artificial intelligence that's been trained on a vast amount of data, usually text data, language, and that what it does is in return, it generates text back, predicting the likelihood of a particular word or phrase. So what it's done is, in the case of ChatGPT and some of these others, these models have been trained on, when they talk about vast amounts of data, they're talking generally about large swaths of the internet. And they've gobbled up all of this information and looked at the words. And so they're predicting if there's a keyword, what word usually follows after that, and what word follows after that. So that's that predictive pattern that we've already seen in these two definitions. At a very, very rudimentary level, that's what these programs are doing. Okay, you've heard GPT. What does that mean? It means generative pre-trained transformer. A lot of syllables there. What does that mean? Again, it's a large language model, so this is text-based. It's generating, hence the generative, human-like text based on learning from billions of sentences in its training data. So it's been pre-trained on, again, large portions of the internet, and then it transforms that back into an answer to you. Okay? That's what GPT stands for in ChatGPT. Google, you do Google searches. You're very comfortable with that, I'm sure. In this case, when you use these models, we call them prompts. And folks who are good at this are called prompt engineers, or you're doing prompt engineering. This is just the input or the query or the question that you're asking ChatGPT or one of these programs to answer. Okay, so that's it. That's our vocabulary test for the day. Now, in following along with this, you would need to go to chat.openai.com, open an account, and you would see a screen that looks much like the one that's on the screen right now. Pretty simple. There's a box right there, just like a Google search, and you would enter your prompt or your search in that area, and it would give you an answer. So again, questions, we're deeming them prompts. The difference between a Google search and a GPT prompt is that you're going to find yourself in a more of a conversation with ChatGPT than just doing linear searches. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. In the case of what you're seeing today, this is a paid ChatGPT account. So a few things are open to this than someone who has the free account. I'll be using ChatGPT 4, which is the most current version. And then I'm also going to talk about things called plugins. In this case, I'm using 3 plugins. One's called Ask Your PDF. The second one is called Chat with PDF, and the last one is called Link Reader. Now, by the time you watch this, all of these things may be free, so that's great. But if not, if you just log in, you get a free account, and you go, wow, I don't really have access to this stuff. That's the difference between the paid account and the free account. I would recommend, at least for a month, go ahead and give it a shot. I think it's $20. See what you think about how this all works. Okay, so a lot of confusion is, well, why would I use ChatGPT or one of these AI functions as opposed to, say, doing the Google search? What's the difference? And the difference is that GPT is not a search engine. Google is a search engine. This is more like a reason engine. So the Google, it crawls, it indexes, and it ranks your results. Meanwhile, GPT works differently. It's been trained on the internet data, but what it does is it uses logic, it uses an algorithm, it uses its artificial intelligence to summarize and predict and even conclude what response it needs to give back to you. Google will give you a linear keyword search. I would like to know restaurants in West Palm Beach. It will spit back restaurants in West Palm Beach. And then that's it. Your next search, you kind of have to start fresh. It doesn't remember the prior search. ChatGPT, again, emphasis on chat, is a conversation. It's going to remember what you type. It's going to keep that context, and it's going to apply that as you have further conversations. Google is very good at helping you find things, whether it be information or a PDF or forms or directions. ChatGPT can give you some of that information, but that's not really what its strength is. Its strength is it'll help you create something, right? And I'll show you how that works in just a second. You've probably heard of this term hallucinations. This is when you get a result from ChatGPT and it essentially makes up information. For example, there's been instances where lawyers have asked ChatGPT to write parts of their motions and cite cases, and it ends up making up cases. Again, that's really not the strength of ChatGPT, so it can, from time to time, provide you with wrong information, just like Google can as well. The simple solution is, one, use Google for Google searches and ChatGPT for other searches. But if you are using it and relying on the information it gives you, then go ahead and just Google some of those results to make sure that they're real. And then I would just say, in comparison, don't be concerned about the phrase hallucination so much. You probably do more Google searches that end up in dead ends or wrong results or just not the answer that you're looking for more often than you get really great results from Google. That would be considered a hallucination. So again, trust, but go ahead and verify if you're using it for particular information. The next concern I hear quite a bit is, well, what about privacy? And there's two ways to deal with this. The first is, again, here's your logon screen to ChatGPT. You hit the three little dots next to your account. You then select settings, and then you're going to get a box that looks like this. You click on data controls, and then you go to chat history and training, and you turn that off. Right now it's on, you would turn it to off. And that means everything in your chat is going to be private. They're not going to use that as part of their training data. You would then be able to, again, use that safely as far as what information that you put up there, subject to, of course, their terms and conditions. I would believe that's reasonably safe. If you're going to have ChatGPT interpret data that is private, then another step that you could do is, for example, it's a Word document or a PDF, go ahead and do the find and replace function, change the names, remove places, remove identifiers, and then go ahead and have it interpret the information that you're uploading. That said, everything we're talking about today is going to be largely generic, and these are all going to be valuable prompts that you can use that are not going to interfere with any sort of privacy concerns or anything along those lines. All right, so let's try it. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you how ChatGPT could help you make a presentation, for example, on artificial intelligence, and then we'll go ahead and celebrate with a beer. All right, so the first prompt that I asked ChatGPT is, you are a lawyer teaching a class of other lawyers about artificial intelligence, including how to use ChatGPT and DALL-E in their law practice. The class will be 90 minutes. Create a title for the class and an outline of the topics to cover. You'll note that you typically don't enter a 3-sentence and full sentences into Google for a Google search. Again, this is a conversation, and the more information that you provide to the system, the better, again, it's looking at context, the better information, the better response it's going to give you. So all of these things are very important. We've given it a voice, we've given it an identity, we've explained it, the situation, and now we're asking, give us a title of the class and an outline of the topics to cover. So in response, this is what it ended up giving me. It suggested the title should be Artificial Intelligence in the Legal Practice, Harnessing the Power of ChatGPT and DALL-E. Okay, a little worried, but that's about right. It then goes through and creates this class outline, gives me an introduction, gives me an intro on artificial intelligence and the law, introduction to ChatGPT, and then it sort of goes on from there. It then goes into DALL-E, which again is an image creator. We'll talk about that later. And then it explores both things and just has a wrap up with Q&A at the end. Fantastic. So I noticed, you'll notice that in the outline, it had this third section, Introduction to ChatGPT. So we go, okay, well, that would be really cool to kind of focus on that section. How would we write that? What would be the content? So we go back, and again, up top here is the first prompt that we put in. It gave us the outline. Now we're going to follow up and do a second prompt and say, again, this is who you are, lawyer teaching the class. One of the 15-minute sections of the course is called Introduction to ChatGPT. This is what it told us. In that section you want to cover, and we just cut and pasted what was in the section that ChatGPT had given us, just pasted it in there. Now we're telling it, write a script for that section of the course. So the first thing we did was within a sentence or two, hey, we're teaching this course. Can you just give us an outline? Gave us the outline. Now we're saying, all right, here's one of the sections you give us a script for this. And so this is what it comes back with. It says, absolutely, here's your 15-minute script for section 3. And it goes through and it gives you both indicators where you should be putting, for example, a PowerPoint slide up, and it has all of the narration that you would need to go through, and I didn't include all of it, but all of the things that you would need for section 3 of that report. So what you could do is start with a prompt, hey, I want to teach this course, give me an outline, you decide you like it, then you go, okay, one by one for each of these sections, go ahead and give me a script, and within about what would you say, 5 minutes, you would have a script for the entire presentation. Okay, so now you're done. So now you have time, you get to kick back. Let's see what else creative things we can do. Let's celebrate. Let's go ahead and make a beer. Okay, so we ask it, create a recipe for 5 gallons of Belgian ale, which is unique. It should include unusual hops, 2 different sugars, and 3 spices. You may ask, what does any of this have to do with mediation? The point is, I'm trying to just give you a general idea as to some of the ways that you can use this, and the conversational tone of this will bring it back to mediation in a second. But enjoy the ride here for just a second. All right, so it comes back and it says, sure, here's your unique recipe, including some unusual hops, some sugars, some spices. Then it gives you your ingredients list, okay? You'll note that, well, you probably will note that some of these ingredients are kind of unusual. Belgian candy sugar is not unusual for a Belgian ale. Honey's not unusual. But coriander is unusual. Star anise is unusual. And certainly saffron for a beer is kind of unusual. Then it gives you your instructions. And I did go through these. It seems pretty reasonable. And then at the end, it says, hey, I hope you like your beer. All right, great. So we said, that's great. Why did you choose those recipes? And it came back and it says, well, I'm glad you liked the recipe, and explains. I chose coriander because it's fairly common in Belgian beers. I chose star anise just because it's not commonly used. I chose saffron because it's unusual. And the aim was to create a recipe that's rooted in the tradition of Belgian ale, but also unique and adventurous. The point of this, or the point of this exercise, is it's taking what I'm asking, and it's not only, again, predicting what it needs to give back, but it's also looking at the context. It's saying, all right, you want a Belgian ale, but you want it to be unique. So I'm tying it to something that relates to Belgian ales, but at the same time, I'm trying to come up with something that's unique. So it's really having a conversation. It's actually reading and listening to what we're asking it to do. Okay, so we continue. Hey, let's name our beer. We're making a Belgian ale for a group of mediators from Florida who are attending a full-day seminar learning about ADR so they can better help people resolve their differences. You previously gave me the recipe, which includes the unusual ingredients. Give me 5 potential names for our beer. So it comes back and it gives us this following list of different beers for our brew, which are kind of cool. The Harmony Hops Belgian Ale, okay, it's not bad. The Resolution Rendezvous Belgian Beer, kind of fun. Mediators Mellow Melange Ale, I kind of like that one. So let's take that one. So then we go, all right, you know what, we've changed our mind. We've decided that we want to sell our beer, this Mediators Mellow Melange. And it's going to be exclusive to Florida, and given its unique ingredients and the name, what type of person would be our target audience? So again, we're following up the conversation. We're giving it some more information. We're in Florida, and we're focused on the ingredients and the name. Now we're asking it the question, who's our target audience? It comes back and it says, hey, these are all of the types of people who would be a target audience for your product. It's kind of interesting. I mean, the second group it came up with was, of course, mediators and legal professionals, including attorneys, judges, arbitrators, or anyone involved in conflict resolution. It talks about high-end products because saffron threads makes it a luxury item. Socially conscious consumers, because you might give a portion of your sales to a program that's supporting ADR initiatives. Kind of cool. So we then ask, all right, we want to launch our product. We want to launch our beer. So we want to market to mediators and legal professionals. Can you propose a marketing campaign? And it goes on and it gives us some ideas. We're going to call it Sip the Resolution. Actually pretty funny. It talks about how our unique beer symbolizes the harmony and resolution mediators and legal professionals strive to achieve. This is great stuff. It gives you some ideas. You can target ads towards legal professionals. You can put that on LinkedIn. You can partner with the Bar Association. you can partner with the Florida Academy of Professional Mediators. Pretty cool. It continues to give you some other ideas. You can sponsor some local legal and mediation events. You can send samples to the beers to mediation firms and law offices. I'm sure they'd love that. And you can have some educational content, why this beer resonates with the work that mediators do. Pretty clever, pretty human sounding responses here. All right, so let's continue our project here. We're going to now label our beer. So we go over to DALL-E, which I mentioned again. It's not a language model. This is an image model, and we give it a prompt. We want a Florida-themed beer label for a beer named, and then we just cut and paste ChatGPT's beer name in there. It came up with these kind of mock labels, which obviously they're not in English. They're just kind of words, but they look pretty good, actually. They certainly look like beer labels. And are kind of beer themed, but at the same time, Florida themed. Thought it was very cool. All right, so what's our takeaway message? Why am I showing you how to do a presentation, how to market beer, how to create beer? The point was, if you notice, this was a conversation, not a search, right? That's the difference between the reasoning model and a search engine. So again, I think the number one sort of mental block that I come across when I talk to people about ChatGPT is they're like, well, why don't I just Google it? And the difference is it's more like a conversation, and you're not just looking for linear responses. You also created something, right? You wouldn't be able to do that with a Google search. You might Google and find someone else's recipe. You might Google and find an article that generically talks about marketing beer or something along those lines. But we actually created this on the spot. We came up with the name, we came up with who we're going to market it to, we're going to come up with the label, all of these things right on the spot. Imagine if you were going to replace beer with your mediation practice, how you would be able to better market your mediation practice using a tool like this. Okay, so aside from presentations and marketing, what else can this help us with? Let's get into that. So let's talk about some products and platforms. And by the way, the images that you see on your screen, which are kind of cool, came from DALL-E. The prompt was a mediator in Florida typing on a keyboard using ChatGPT, and I asked it to do it in the style of an oil painting. And so these are the four images that it came up with. Thought it was pretty cool. I think I kind of like, from the color standpoint, the one on the far right, but cool. All right, so let's, the first product or platform we're going to talk about is ChatGPT itself. And I've already shown it to you, but there it is again. The next one is Bing AI. This one is very good in the sense that it brings in ChatGPT. It's free, and Bing also can provide you with some citations as to where the information, if you're asking for information, where it came from. I believe currently you have to use the Microsoft Edge browser and have to sign up for it. But it's my understanding, if it hasn't happened already, you should be able to access it using Chrome or some other browsers. It's a very, very cool, and again, free service, so give that one a shot. The other one is Google Bard. Again, these all are looking very much the same. You would be able to converse with Bard or Bing just the same way that you saw me converse with ChatGPT. So you should try each of these out, see what you think. I believe Bard is still something you have to sign up for. I don't believe there's a waiting list, and it's my understanding that's also free. ChatSonic is a lesser known one, but a fully functional, fully featured one that I believe is built off of ChatGPT. It also is very good. It has also a built-in image generator, just like DALL-E. I've played around with it. It's very, very slick, very easy, has a lot of helps with your prompts. So that too is an option if you want to check out some different platform. ChatPDF, which is chatpdf.com, is also very cool. And you do not need to have an account or anything like that for it. You just take a PDF from your desktop, drag it over, and start asking it questions, and it will answer questions based upon the content of your PDF. I believe it has a limit. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it's around 30 pages for the free account, as far as how much you can put up at one time and how much it can answer based on. But if you're looking at cases, if you're looking at other documents that you wanted to summarize, or you wanted to answer questions based on, Chat PDF is very cool. Similar to that is one called, I believe it's pronounced Humata, also humata.com. Here too, it is free. I believe you sign up for this one and you can drag and drop. Here it's less than 60 pages. Put the PDF in there and you can start asking questions about what's in the PDF. We'll talk about some of those prompts in just a second. Here's one that's a little different than a website, and it's called Ghostwriter. This one is not free. I believe it's about $10. And it is a plugin. I think they call them add-ins, but it's a plugin for Microsoft Word. And what it does is you're able to open up this side window when you're typing, and it's a faster access to ChatGPT. So for example, if you've got a paragraph and you go, I want to see if I can tweak this a little bit, you'd be able to pop it into ChatGPT, ask it to rewrite it and rephrase it, which I'll show you how to do. And then you take the responses, cut and paste it, back in you go. Or you could do a prompt and say, hey, give me a paragraph that talks about blank with a particular tone and a particular writing style. And then boom, you'd be able to cut and paste it right in the same screen. So it's a really cool product that speeds up your writing and fairly inexpensive. I would recommend to you that if you get comfortable using ChatGPT and you're interested in something like this, you go ahead and start with that and then move over to Ghostwriter. Finally, well, I think there's one more after this. There is a Chrome extension called ChatGPT for Chrome and YouTube. This one is really interesting, and what it is again, it's an extension if you know how to use those in Chrome. But you go on YouTube and you select a video, and then you ask the extension using ChatGPT to give you the transcript of what's said in the video. So that way, if you want to read it, or if you want to keep some of the sections or what have you, you could have the entire script of the video, of any particular video in writing. Very cool. Again, nice way to save a lot of time instead of fast forwarding through video. There is a website called 11 Labs. This will clone your voice. Some people are a little concerned about that. Others not so much, but if you wanted to play around with this, you can go ahead and make a free account and you read a few things in there, and ultimately it will learn your voice and will turn it around. So that way you could then upload text and then have your voice be the one who's repeating it. Good for narration, all those other kinds of things. There's a function on the new iPhone operating system called, I think, Live Voice or Live Presentation, where you can train your voice. Still sounds a little robotic. This one, however, is much more sophisticated and does sound very, very good, very real. Finally, DALL-E, which again, you've seen a little bit of, works just the same. You just ask it to create a picture for you, type in the words, and it creates the image. So if you're making a PowerPoint or you need some graphics for your website or something along those lines, very quickly you can crank out these images versus doing a Google search image and then making sure that you don't have any problems with copyright or something along those lines. This is a much faster way to go ahead and create those images. All right, so let's talk about some prompts that you can use in your mediation practice. Again, I use DALL-E, two people reaching an agreement under a palm tree in Florida using watercolors. And it kind of looks more like something maybe a kid would draw, but pretty cool nonetheless. All right, so in terms of prompts, again, you'll notice that we've put these together. These are sentences. I mean, you can still just do very quickie little questions, but if you're really getting the most out of this, you're going to find yourself writing one or two sentences. The first thing you want to do is give ChatGPT a voice. Identify who it is. You're a lawyer, you're a law professor, you're an actor, you're an accountant, you're a professor. You get it. And you can even mention specific people. You're Stephen Hawking. You're a particularly famous lawyer or judge. You're a celebrity, what have you. Give it a voice. And if it's not an individual person, then say you're not just a lawyer, but you're a trial lawyer. And you're experienced in presenting persuasive materials to the court and to juries and writing appellate briefs, something like that. Now that you've explained what voice you want ChatGPT to respond in, you then ask your question. You then add some details as to what you want or details about the topic. One of the things, and I'll show you in a little bit, is you can then ask it, hey, before you give me a response, ask me some additional questions and wait for my response before answering. So you could just literally cut and paste that sentence into your prompt, and it'll pause before giving you a result, ask you some follow-up questions, and then boom, give you an answer. Finally, at the end, you give it a format. I want this in 2 sentences. I want 500 words. I want it in bullet points. I'm a big bullet point fan, so I usually have it in bullet points. I want it in a table, which we'll talk about in a little bit. That is the structure, the anatomy of really good prompts. Google search, again, you're probably looking to do something super short, just the keywords. It's not in full sentences. This, again, different creature altogether. This is a chat or a conversation, and it needs that context to give you the absolutely best results. So here's an example. Let's say you want to do some general research. You're a 25-year law professor. So I'm telling it who it is. What are the legal legal elements of, and then you put in whatever it is you want to research, defamation or copyright law or something along those lines. What are the legal elements? Provide the response in a bullet point list and provide a 1 to 2 sentence summary at the end. That is actually my preferred output method, and I put that in there routinely, is give me a couple of bullet points. Sometimes I say I want 5 bullet points, then give me a summary of 1 to 2 sentences. That will give you a perfect snapshot of the legal elements of a law, a tort, or a concept. So, we being mediators, you've got a case coming in and both sides are talking about a particular industry or a particular legal concept that maybe you're not that familiar with. Maybe it's something that's very technical, again, in a particular industry. You could pop that into ChatGPT and get a quick summary brought up to speed exactly as to what that is that they're talking about, whether it be in the law or, again, could be engineering, could be medicine, could be anything along those lines. You just put it in, you are who you are, whatever profession it is. You ask it whether it be the elements or some details about whatever that thing is, and then you tell it in what format you want the response. You'll get a tailored answer. And again, you're able to follow up on this. It's not like a Google search. You could literally then say, hey, following up on that, give me more bullet points. Or, as you'll see, we can ask it for some additional information. The third thing that you can do with ChatGPT is you can ask it to interpret cases. Again, this is more for lawyers, but let's say both sides are writing to you and say, wow, we're heading into summary judgment. We want to mediate, and the legal issue is this, and the leading case is blank. Right? Maybe you didn't read that particular case, or you haven't read it recently. You can ask ChatGPT to go ahead and give you a summary of that case or those cases. So again, I'm using the paid version of ChatGPT that allows me to use plugins. I turn on one of these plugins. I then say, this is a court opinion, and I give it the link, or I just cut and paste the text, if it's short enough, of the opinion in there. I then say, you are a lawyer, a judge, a court. I can even say you're a famous lawyer or judge or something along those lines. Explain who the voice is, analyze the case, and provide a summary of the key points, bullet point format, wrap it up with a 1 to 2 sentence summary. It will analyze this and then go ahead and spit that back out to me. Very cool. Also very cool if there's a brand new case, quick and dirty way of getting through those to decide whether or not you want to read the whole thing or not. You could also use the Humata or the ChatGPT sites that I talked about. You just take the PDF, drag it on there, drop it, ask those questions, and it'll go ahead and give you those responses back. Again, we're not worried about privacy. This is all public information. You're just putting it in and asking it questions, and it's already in the public domain. The next thing you could do is you could ask it to start a contract, right? So again, instead of being a Google search for asking for something or directions, we're now creating something, but we're just starting this contract, right? I didn't say draft. You still have to put your experience in there. You then say you are a lawyer, law professor, whatever, judge, whatever you want to put in there. Write a contract between 2 people, 3 people, whatever it is, which includes the following terms. You add that in there. You can then ask it follow-up questions. Hey, I want another clause that covers indemnity. I want another clause that talks about liens. I want another clause that talks about confidentiality. Then you could ask it, hey, here's what you've given me. Is there any terms in there that are ambiguous that need to be clarified or revised or just eliminated? It'll go ahead and do that until you refine it and refine it and refine it. You then paste it into a Word document, and then you add that human element on top of what ChatGPT has given you to work with, and off you go. Now, in the mediation context, I have spent a great deal of time mediating the case, right? And then it's late in the afternoon or, God forbid, late in the evening. And now we're writing that mediation settlement page, and there's some bickering over, well, I want this clause to look this way, and then the other side wants a similar but not quite the same clause, and they just can't seem to bridge the gap. You could actually say, all right, go to ChatGPT and say, you are a lawyer engaged in civil litigation, or you're a mediator, and there are 2 lawyers who have presented these competing paragraphs. Here's the first one, here's the second one. Can you rewrite these 2? Can you harmonize them together? Can you come up with additional versions that the parties can review? Again, if they had names in them, you would remove those names so it doesn't go onto the internet. But you would then be able to get a response back. You can even ask it for, like, give me 3 versions, give me 5 versions. You could then get those 2, print them out, show them the screen, and say, hey, parties, do any of these variations of the words that you all are disputing, do any of these either help you out or inspire you to find even more middle ground? Very, very good at language. So when we're dealing with issues of settlement agreements or disputes between different words and phrases, this is an excellent, excellent tool that, again, you can use without disclosing any private information. It can also improve your writing, right? I'm going to show you 2 instances of this. One of them is really pretty significant. So you could then, first you would identify, hey, you're a writer. And maybe you would say you've been doing it for 25 years, you're a newspaper writer, whatever, screenwriter, author, whatever it needs to be. Rewrite the following text to improve it. Vary the length of the sentences. The tone should be neutral. Here again, I picked that. It could be friendly, it could be informal, it could be academic. Here's the text, and you paste it in there. Could be a couple of sentences, could be much longer. And it would go ahead and make those adjustments for you. You would then read it over, make some further adjustments, and you'd have a new piece of text. Sometimes if you're writing and you just kind of are like, boy, these 2 sentences are kind of clunky, you could cut, paste it, pop it in there, come up with some cleaner language, tweak it a little bit more, and move on from there. This is an excellent, excellent tool. So here's a second one that's a bit more complicated, but look at how customized these results are. So a couple of years ago, I wrote an article for the Palm Beach Bar about understanding the then recent updates to Florida's fireworks statute. As you might guess, this came out in the June edition of the Palm Beach Bar Bulletin. In the end, in retrospect, I was not really happy with this particular article. I think it runs about 2 pages. All the information was there. I just don't think it was my best writing in the world. So obviously this wasn't around in 2020, but for the purposes of this, I was like, well, hey, let's use that article as an example. So we asked ChatGPT, you're an experienced writer with hundreds of publications in magazines and newspapers over 25 years. Stop right there. So we're obviously making the voice to be someone who's a better writer, or at least a more frequent writer than I am. Analyze the following text and suggest improvements. Consider structure, length of sentences, vocab, and style. Keep in mind this article was written by a lawyer for lawyers, as well as the general public. Provide your response in a table with the following columns: suggested improvement, how to revise, and reason for change. Okay. So again, let's look at this prompt. Clearly not a Google search. You gave it a voice. You had your ask. I want you to analyze this and suggest improvements. Gave it a little more detail. Think about these things. Explain to it who the writer was and who the intended audience was. And then you asked it, hey, this is the format. So we've, to date, what we talked about, usually done bullet points. In this case, I want a table, and I want you to break it down. What's the improvement? How are we going to revise a particular section, and why do you want me to do that? And then we popped in, and in fact, I just cut and pasted in, big cut and paste, that entire article. This is what I got back. So it obviously scrolls, which we can't do for the purpose of this PowerPoint, but it says, first of all, and this is our table, right? Here are the 3 categories, columns that I asked it to do. Simplify complex sentences. Then it gave me some examples. Take this sentence and turn it into that sentence. Then it explained to me why. That sentence is long and complex. Well, welcome to the practice of law. Breaking it up into smaller sentences makes it easier to understand. Fair enough. Use more engaging language. How dare you? And then it goes on and suggests, well, just go ahead and do these things in terms of changing that particular sentence. Unfortunately, this goes on. Use more specific language, remove unnecessary details, be more concise, use more professional language, gives me some suggestions as to what, and it tells me why. So very briefly, you could, again, if you've got, whether it be marketing material on your website, an article that you're working on, a letter that you're sending out to the parties, again, you would anonymize it. If you wanted to improve your writing, you would then put it through this system, take a look at the changes, decide what you want to adopt or not adopt, and then go ahead and put out a more superior product in terms of writing. The purpose of this is not to cheat or anything along those lines. This is a tool to improve your writing. And I have a feeling I probably would have been more happy with that article if I had made, since they gave me a page and a half of suggestions, I probably would have been happier with the final product if I had used this in writing that document. Let me give you another prompt that we can work with. So, and again, this dials right into Mediators. Evaluating claims and defenses. You are, and again, you could be the mediator, you could be the lawyer, you could be the judge. Read this fact pattern, paste in a bunch of facts. Evaluate whether one side has a specific claim or a specific defense. Assume, and then you pop in whatever the legal concept is, requires the person to do whatever the elements are. What's the best argument that blank? And then again, if you were a lawyer, write a section of a legal pleading arguing that. This just gives you that structure. So again, if you're getting 2 sides of a case and you're like, well, I'm not really sure, you could anonymize it, paste it in there, using what I've given you as kind of a framework. Ask it to provide what are the best arguments. Let's see how good these arguments are you're getting on both sides. Helps you evaluate it, whether you're shared or not. Helps you evaluate an area, particularly if you're not that familiar with the industry or the area of law that folks are disputing. Getting to know different developments in areas of law. Again, let's say you get a mediation in a legal issue that is something you can handle, but still you're just not really on fully up on everything that's new. Well, ask it. Say, hey, you're a law professor. Provide a summary of the academic thinking regarding whatever the topic is, highlighting the key concepts. List out recent developments in that area. Give me some examples, explain the importance or impact of each of those developments. In this case, it's just going to give you a long, probably couple of paragraph narrative answer, giving you the hot topics. In this instance, yes, you could Google and maybe find a law review article or a law firm that has an article about that, no question about it. But this one you're tailoring, and if you really want it in a particular format where you just need the bullet points, this would be a faster and, again, more tailored response to what you're looking for. So you might then get the response and say, all right, well, following up on my prior question, excuse the typo, list as many different perspectives as there are on this topic. Think about it from different points of view, from people who are interested in this. Give me a bullet point response. And it then would give you 5 or 6 different perspectives on whatever that legal issue is. This too will help you get a sense as what are the different ways that we can look at a particular dispute? What are the ways that when you're challenging one side in their thinking, it might give you some ideas, it might round out your knowledge of a particular industry or legal issue that you would be able to use during the mediation process to kind of poke and prod and get folks to thinking and actually negotiating their stance. Very, very helpful tool there. Let me give you some little pointers that kind of a mixed bag here. You could, again, say you are a lawyer, mediator, law professor, what have you. Evaluate what legal issues are raised by the following fact pattern. You would then cut and paste in there, and it will give you a paragraph or two explaining what some of the legal issues are in there. So it would pick things out. So if you had that fact pattern, you maybe didn't even say the word defamation, it would pick out, well, this could be defamation. This could be intentional infliction of emotional distress. This could be false light, anything along those lines. It actually will consider the context, consider the words, and tell you, hey, these might be the legal issues. So when you see, for example, some news stories that say, well, ChatGPT did really well on the LSATs or did really well on the medical standardized tests, it's because it's very, very good at language and pulling things out and synthesizing it and interpreting it. If you tell it to think like a lawyer, it will take those fact patterns and act like a lawyer. Again, if you're looking for information saying, hey, I just need to get some general ideas, give me the top law journals or legal news articles directed to lawyers which analyze a particular case. Boom, it can give you that. You would then turn around and take Google and just cut and paste and pop it into Google and go ahead and get that article. This one is interesting, is just ask it, hey, give me arguments for and against a particular topic. Could be abortion, could be defamation, could be copyright, could be any of these things that are coming up in your cases that you're mediating. Give me the arguments pro and con. And again, you could use these to sort of poke and prod each side into challenging their own thinking. You could ask it for the legislative history of statutes and codes. You could ask it listing some case opinions on specific topics in specific jurisdictions which address certain issues. Again, there are other tools out there that can do this, but this as well is one of them. Now, again, as I started with, there are some lawyers who reportedly used this ChatGPT in this way and got themselves in trouble because ChatGPT would say, all right, well, I'm just going to start making up cases because you asked me for names, and it just, again, predicted and started creating things one word at a time. If it sounds too good to be true, trust it, but go ahead and verify it. Pop it into Google, make sure that case exists, drop it into Westlaw. Let's switch out of law for a second and let's just get into your daily life practice. You can ask it to create a schedule for you. So for example, you could say, I need an hour-by-hour schedule from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. today for myself. And I've got these tasks. I need to read a number of mediation statements that are coming in, which will probably take an hour and a half. I need to work on some billing. I got to take an hour for lunch. I've got a morning session, an afternoon session, and I want to do some online shopping. That'll take 20 minutes. You give it all that information and you ask it to put it in a table. It will then create your entire schedule for the day, and off you go. Kind of cool. Another thing you can ask it to do and summarize is a real skill of ChatGPT, but summarize books, movies, shows, what have you. So for example, I asked the following question. You're an experienced author and you've published a book reviewer, you're a published book reviewer. Provide a summary of the book Station 11 by Emily St. John and include the key concepts. Give me a bullet point. Again, I love this. Bullet point it for me, but also give me a 2-sentence summary. Station 11 is a relatively recent science fiction book, and it was recently made into a TV series. So let's see what, and it has several different layers to it if you've either read or watched that show. Different layers to it. So let's see what it comes back with. So it explains it's a post-apocalyptic novel by Emily St. John Mandel. It was first published in 2014. Goes through, it gives me a summary, talks about the post-apocalyptic world, talks about the interconnected stories. Narrative is non-linear. Talks about one of the groups in the story, the art and culture. Talks about memory and loss, which is two of the themes of the book. Talks about that the characters are reading this fictional comic book called, or graphic novel called Station 11. And then it talks about the themes of hope and rebirth that is in the book. So that is a pretty good summary, right, of that particular book. Big book, can't remember how many pages it was. I think it was about 400 or 500 pages. And certainly the series was probably a good 8 to 10 hours long. So that was a pretty solid summary of that particular book. If you needed that for, whether it be in your regular life or for the purposes of one of your mediations, this is an excellent summary that if you just went to the New York Times and read a book review, it would take you much longer to cut to the chase and get what you got through ChatGPT. Let's talk some more about some tips for prompt writing. Be as clear and concise as you possibly can. Avoid jargon and try to use short sentences. It can understand jargon, it can understand technical words, but you're going to be much happier if you're using as simple statements as you possibly can. Context, and in that case, I mean, give it some detail, right? So don't just say, well, I'm going to be putting something on social media. Be specific. I mean, it'll know the difference between Facebook and LinkedIn and the different tones and the different audiences. It knows that. Don't just say, well, I want the best restaurant in Miami. Tell it, listen, I want seafood in Coral Gables that also has a bar. Again, there's some risk that it'll make that up, but you just pop it into Google and see if that's the place that you want to do. But the point is, give it some detail. Don't just leave it at a very superficial or descriptive level. Really dig in and give it some information to work with to make its responses better. Because again, it's taking each word, it's trying to predict associated words that go around it. And so the more words you give it, the better response you're going to get. You can follow up and ask follow-up questions. You can tell it, I didn't like the response that you gave me. Explain to it why, and then ask more questions. It will apologize, and then it will give you alternative answers. If you don't like that, explain why. It'll give you a third set of answers. They're not changing the information. It's just trying to tailor its response to what you want. And by you telling it, I don't like it, you've given it one piece of information, but then you explain why, you're giving it more context than it can work with. so that it can now give you some information that is probably closer to what you were looking for. So you can ask it, I want to follow up on that question. You can say, that's not quite what I wanted, then rephrase the question. You can just simply say, I'm completely lost. I think I want you to answer something along these lines, or I want some information along these lines. Be very open about it, and it will answer you like a regular person. You can, if it gives you answers that you like, ask it for an explanation. Ask it for examples. Give me a list of blank and include examples for each. You could put that right in your first prompt, or you can wait till it gives you the answer and then ask it as a follow-up question. You can also ask for it to provide you step-by-step instructions, or you can say, explain your thinking. And again, it can be a follow-up question, can be built into the prompt in the first place. You can ask it for not only just different lengths, I want a paragraph, I want 100 words, or you can just be very generic and say, I want a short answer, a medium answer, or long answer. The other one, which I did mention before, but I think is really good, is ask me questions and wait for my response before answering. And that really, and it'll come back, and it usually is about 3 or 4 questions, and then boom, it'll give you the response. I do want to, again, the purpose of our presentation today was to focus on helping you understand how this works, right? Hands-on, practical experience in prompt writing and how it applies to law and mediation. But let me give you some recommended readings that are free that I thought were very helpful. The first one is from the Florida Bar. Judge Klingensmith from the 4th DCA wrote this article that was published in May/June. And it's an overview really from a perspective of a judge who's interested in technology about AI and how he sees it affecting the not only legal practice, judicial process, those kinds of things. It is more theoretical, but it does have some specific citations in there. It's not going to be prompt writing, but just gives you a bigger picture. I thought it was a great article discussing what the future may look like for law and ChatGPT. The next one also came from the Florida Bar a little earlier. This was in March. And kudos to the Florida Bar for jumping on this. I mean, we first learned about ChatGPT in November, and by mid-March, they had already published an article about lawyers' use of AI and the rules of professional conduct. Some great information in there. Next, and you can Google this, there's a law review article, the implications of ChatGPT for legal services in society. Also in March, again, a broader sort of think piece about where we're headed in terms of law and ChatGPT. Eugene Volokh out of UCLA, he's very well known for, I believe, mostly First Amendment and defamation type issues. He wrote large libel models, again, LLM, talking about liability for AI output. So here's a draft that he wrote. You can just find this on the internet back in April. By the time that you watch this in August, there's already been a number of different lawsuits about how authors and some other creatives have had concerns about the training data that the AI has used, and that it may spit back information that is either a copyright issue or in this case might end up libeling somebody. It's a very, very interesting article from really a true expert in this area. Finally, the American Bar Association came up with this resolution that you should check out just so you get a sense as to what the American Bar Association has said about AI. I would have a section in here about Q&A, but we'll have at this point already been exchanging some questions and answers in the comment section. I have a pug, so I put pugs in there, and I asked DALL-E to do 4 pugs asking questions. It gave me 3 pugs, and then this little guy up here. Go figure. All right, again, my name is Christopher Hopkins. If you all have any questions that we didn't cover in the chat, go ahead and email me. You can also find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on X, which used to be Twitter. Go ahead and send me a message, direct message. I'd be happy to talk to you about any of these things. If you find something that you thought was interesting and you wanted to send it over to me, I would love to read it. Love to hear from you. Thank you all very much for your attention. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.